everyone, I'm so happy you're joining me tonight. I've been kicking around the idea of starting this series for a while now and finally decided it was time to sit down and press record. I've got my mug ready. Tonight we are having the Organic Skinny by David's Tea. So if you have a second, go grab yourself something to drink and come hang out for a bit. Welcome to the very first episode of Stitched and Steeped. If you're new here, my name is Crystal. I'm the maker behind Quilted Heart Gifts, based here in rural Nova Scotia. My days are usually a busy juggle between life as a stay-at-home mom and life as a fiber artist. I'm one of those makers who can never quite stick to one thing. Whether I'm at my sewing machine or my spinning wheel or weaving, I'm usually just chasing whatever creative bug inspires me in the moment. I just love the entire process of creating something from nothing. And I'm always looking for a new texture or technique to try. I decided to start these videos as a way to carve out a little bit of quiet in the evenings. I want Stitched and Steeped to be a digital version of a cozy evening chat in the studio. Instead of a formal tutorial, this is just a space for us to decompress together. I'll be sitting down with my drink to catch up with you on what I'm currently working on, show you some behind the scenes of my shop, and just talk through whatever's been going on in my world lately. So whether you're crafting along or just winding down for the night, I'm glad you're here. Let's get into it. So one of the first things I wanted to start talking about was my kind of maker's journey on how I've come to where I was. I first started learning a lot of the crafts with my grandmother when she was watching me after school or during summer breaks. I remember her teaching me how to sew on her sewing machine in the basement. And we would make these like drawstring bags, just two layers of cotton with a twisted up yarn just drawstring. And then she also taught me how to cross stitch. I remember doing a couple little cross stitches on like 8 count Ada, learning that. And then into my teenage years, I really started kind of chasing that creative bug. I tried a lot of hobbies outside of the fiber arts. I did a lot of creative writing. I learned how to play the flute. Just kind of kept exploring things. And then in my early 20s, I had a pretty big life change moving across the country. And it really changed the rhythm of my life. And I was looking for some kind of slower, more tactile pursuits. And so I picked up knitting again. It was something I learned a little bit with my grandmother. And I started really getting into it. And I started going to a weekly knitting group where I quickly discovered spinning because there were some of the members of the knitting group who were bringing their spinning wheel with them to this knitting group. And so they introduced me to the drop spindle, which very quickly became an upright spinning wheel and really started encouraging me to explore more of the fiber arts and the whole path. Then, a few years before lockdown happened, I got a new job at a fabric store where it really reignited my love for sewing, especially the speed at which sewing produces something versus the slower crafts I'd always done. And then lockdown hit. And in a desire to continue sewing, be productive, find a way to be helpful, I started making some fabric masks. And that's where Quilted Hearts Gifts was born out of, was making some masks and selling them on Etsy. And my goal was to use that as a starting point and then to make some other giftables I could then sell after the fact. Then in around 2002, when I moved out in to the more rural side of Nova Scotia. And then And then in 2002, we moved out into, well, 2001, we moved out into rural Nova Scotia. And then 2002, I had my son. And that really kind of refocused and changed my kind of creative endeavors. I had to kind of balance out a lot more of my time. But I also got a lot more inspired about different things I could make. I also then started going to my first in person markets. And that was actually a surprising struggle trying to figure out what to make to fill that table and what to do with it. Um, and I realized like I didn't feel like I had the same passion for it anymore. I was making stuff just to make stuff, and it wasn't anything unique or exciting. But as I looked around at all the other different market tables I was seeing if there's anything I would want to spend my own money on, and talking to some of the other moms that I've been getting to know through my son, and how there seemed to be a gap of there was some stuff for the young babies, like bibs and hats and some little clothing. And then there was stuff for older kids. But for toddlers and preschoolers, there really wasn't anything they could get at the market. And so my mind and my ideas started to shift from generic little giftable things like key fobs and mug warmers and things like that to the more fun imaginative things that I could make for my son and his friends. It started with some like magical capes that I could make and some little dolls, and has slowly been growing into a lot of different unique things. Since making the switch to a more kid product focus, I've only done a handful of in person markets. I've done the really big Christmas one that our area does, which is went decently well. It was kind of my first test, and I definitely would have liked to have had more sales, but it did pretty well. And then I did two markets, one that was like right before Christmas, and then one just this last weekend that are by a local organizer who's fairly new to the scene too. And so their attendance hasn't been super high at these markets, but I've made enough to cover table fees and general expenses, just not enough to really grow by. And so I've been considering starting to make the jump into some of the bigger, busier city markets. But I definitely have like a little bit of like that imposter syndrome when you look at like the super intense, almost like pro level booths and like really good marketing materials. Kind of makes me feel like I'm maybe not quite ready for that. I am working on trying to find that confidence. However, opposite of the super quiet market booths has been another community I've found that I feel really supported and engaged with, and that's been in the makers and crafters community of Twitch. I started streaming a little bit when my son was napping, as using that time to find some community and people to talk to. And I still stream usually most Sunday nights. And I plan to start streaming a lot more when my son goes back to school in September and I have most of my days back. But it's been really nice to meet supportive, creative, inspiring people who are also just trying to make things together. And while some sales have come in from finding that community, it isn't just about the selling, it's about body doubling and sharing that creative energy and just working alongside people, sharing the struggles, the inspirations, the ideas. So it's really nice. It kind of harkens back to that knitting circle I was able to find or in some younger years of my life where it's a lot harder where I am to find that in-person group. It's giving me that benefit of the in-person inspiration through the kind of digital creative crafting circle. And so they've kind of, in a way, become my village. I'm hoping that I can continue to grow that community and friendship as I am able to dive more into it in the fall. It definitely makes the like solo world of crafting and being a stay-at-home mom feel a little less isolating. I've also really enjoyed the circle of people I have managed to meet in real life through my son and going to play groups and things with them. It's given me a good group of people to be market testers on. Some of my favorite things I've made have started as like Christmas gifts for my son's friends, like the wizard's capes that I've made. Or I made this last Christmas some really cute slippers that are really fuzzy and adorable. And so it's been really fun to watch my son and his friends and their interactions with the things I make, and watching also the parents' interactions with them. And those interactions and feedback I get from those people are the things that do give me the confidence that I could potentially try some of the big markets and it would go well, even if my booth isn't all fancy and perfectly set up. The products are things that bring smile and joy. So it's something I just need to keep working on. I have some of the smaller markets still scheduled in for the fall locally. So I'm probably going to be doing those and aiming more for the big town markets in the new year. Since I'm already booked on those ones in the fall, I don't want to back out on those at this point. And then I think if I try to book in much more, it's going to be too busy with my schedule. And so that gives me a year to really continue to refine and develop my product line, work on the booth aesthetics, and kind of really settle into the niche that I've been starting to build without feeling like I have to do it all at once and get it ready for tomorrow. But since I don't really have a huge, big rush or push to get a lot of things done right now, it's also giving me a little bit of time to work on some of my personal projects I want to get done. I've really been enjoying learning to make clothing for myself as I am learning how to style and adapt for my own body and for my family. And so I'm working on trying to make a pair of pants for myself, try to make a really nice fitted linen shirt for my husband. And so those are some kind of more personal projects I want to work on to bring back kind of the love of why I enjoy sewing so much, of being able to create unique and functional things that fit well and giving me confidence. So by taking kind of this time to focus a little less on my store stock, well, I'm still going to be working on it. The focus is going to be a little less on that, to just find joy in making things for the love of making things. I'd love to hear from you though. Are you the type of person who's a slow and steady planner? Or do you just jump in deep dive right away? Is there any kind of fun projects you're working on, dreaming up, whether personal or business? It does feel good though to have a little bit of a plan that respects my pace and family time. But I think that's about where we need to start wrapping up. So thank you very much for sitting down with me for our very first evening chat of Stitched and Steeped. I'm so glad you could join the circle tonight. Until next time, keep your stitches cozy, your tea warm, and keep chasing those creative bugs. I'll see you soon.